DJ RellyRell here with actor Malik Yoba. Big fan, salute. How you doing, man?
What's happening, brother?
Good, everything's good?
No, sir.
I see, you said no?
I feel bullied, man.
I see you rode here on your bike. Do people recognize you on your bike?
Yeah.
When you riding around? So, okay, so they show you that respect on them. They put the
most of the
respect
time.
on your name when you on
Most
the
of the
road.
time, yeah. Sometimes not so much.
Yeah, I know. I almost got hit a few times. I've been there, but yeah, man. Actor with the catalog, the credits is crazy. I'm a big fan of New York Undercover. I actually was watching it. I was like 7 years old, man.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so I gotta ask you, man. Playing a cop even early, like on in your career, like explain, because you guys made it look cool. Like you guys had the swag and, you know, black and brown. You know, explain anything you learned from that experience, just playing a cop and how that applies to today and how you view, you know, just law enforcement and that relationship between, you know, people in inner cities, you know, from our communities and the police.
First of all, I think that's one of the best questions I've ever been asked about the role I played. I've actually played law enforcement about 20 times in my career, between New York City cops to played cop in Turks and Caicos to FBI, the sheriffs to uniformed cops. For me, doing New York Undercover at that time, especially in the 90s, was the question you asked, what did I learn? But I'll just sort of frame it this way. For me, New York Undercover was an extension of the community work that I started doing when I was 16.
Right.
So as someone who got shot at 15, right in Midtown Manhattan, I was always determined to do something about that part, right? So my work in community started because I like to say I'm in the give a business. Like when people say, what do you do? I'm like, if I'm in church, I don't say that. I say, I'm in the give a damn business. But I like to frame it that way because people can see you do one thing and think that defines who you are. And so for me, if you're in the give a damn business, then that means that you're always figuring out how to be of service to something bigger than yourself.
Right.
So playing a cop, for me, I wasn't just playing a cop for me or playing a dad for me. I was playing a dad for you.
Right.
I was playing a dad for every father that lives out there. I was playing a cop for every black cop that's out there, particularly young ones, right? And so the things you do, or I do, in every role that I play, being aware that I'm representing all black men, right? I'm never just thinking about myself. So as a servant, then you're thinking, okay, so if they write a scene where, and this would happen, they'd say things like, you know, JC, my character's name, prepares a TV dinner for his son. And I'm like, nah.
Yeah, I always loved that interaction with you and your son.
Right.
And
But if you notice, like, if you never saw me cook a TV dinner, right, you would see me cooking real food. Because I would tell the props department, go get real food.
that was your choice.
Yeah,
Like, that's
because I thought it was important to show a father cooking with his son. Or if I dropped the kid off at school, somebody gonna kiss me, right? Because my father never kissed me like that. So I knew that if I show that affection between the father and the son, that would mean something. So there's lots of things where I would do something very, very subtle. Like whenever I spoke to my son, I was much more articulate. I used better diction speaking to my son on purpose. And it's subtle, so when you watch the show again, like just peep how I spoke when I spoke to my kid. So there are things like that. What's that?
I always noticed that this, you know, the father aspect of the show and you just being there and working and, you know, the issues. I remember with the one episode where your son had a friend that was getting
Mouse.
Yeah, they had killed him and it had bothered him, and just the way you handled that.
I'm sick and tired of my friends getting shot.
I know as a DJ, like, you know, I've toured and running around and when I started working with Open Door, I kind of fit, like you said, you know, finding your, you know, getting your intentions together, like, okay, I'm gonna act, but I also wanna teach. You know, I also wanna present myself in a certain way. Like, where did you figure that out? At what point did you figure that out? Because New York Undercover was like relatively early in your career.
Right.
So you've had to have that type of mentality before. Like, when did that
Another
happen?
great question, brother. And what I love about that is, like, the first person with the dopest questions was a 15-year-old. You would be the second. You're a little bit older. No, seriously, because
Appreciate it, man.
Yeah, really, that's a very thoughtful question because most people only focus on performance or the actor, but I like the way you bridge the thoughtfulness around community. So for me, I mean, I was that dude young in middle school that all the other kids came to with their problems. So be like, I don't know why I'm telling you this, but and then tell me. And so as a kid, I didn't understand why everybody felt that they needed to tell me their problems, but I knew that I had something to offer.
Right.
And so I've always led with that. I've always led with, like, how can I make a space better? And I was also encouraged to do that by my parents. Right? My father would always say, if there's a crack, fill it. Right. My mother would say, leave a place better than it was when you found it. So those are values that I live with, right? So it's relatively easy for me to do that. If I'm on an airplane and I go in the bathroom and it's dirty, I clean it before I use it. Number one, I don't like to look at that.
Right.
Number two, when I leave, no one's gonna walk in there and be like, yo, this dude's a pig. That's not gonna happen. But it's something as simple as that. You know what I mean? Sometimes it's like you see a little kid with his pants hanging off his behind. You're like, yo, you dropped something. He looks, pick your pants up. Right. You know, sometimes it's just as simple as somebody walking by you and not saying excuse me, and you say, you know, excuse me for them, or please and thank you. Those little things, you know what I mean? Just always, how do you carry those things forward? And as someone of a particular age, I feel a certain responsibility because those are the things I got from the elders that I feel like I have to pass on. Like the other day, actually, you talking about cops. So I was rolling with my boy who was a cop, Edwin Raymond, who's a lieutenant. And I'll answer this two ways. You asked about what did I learn about being a cop, and I would give Edwin props because he's the type of cop in real life that I would have been. But he used to watch me on television when he was a kid, and so he became that type of cop, which is very community-minded, right? He's not a cop to harass people. He's a cop to find justice from within the justice system, which isn't always just, right? So that's someone who's living that message. But anyway, we're driving down the street, and a dude tosses an entire container of food out the window, which drives me nuts.
Right.
I've chased cars that do that, and I'm like, what are you doing?
Say that to somebody that's homeless, man. They might,
don't do that.
Yeah.
Not for somebody that's homeless. What's that?
Well, give your food to
give
somebody.
Give it.
Right.
Oh,
Don't
that's
just,
okay.
you know.
Yeah, that's what you mean. So we pull up, like, so we're in an unmarked car. So he turns the siren on, and the car in front of us is shook. But everybody knows the minute you hear that behind you. So we pull up, and I put the window down.
Hopefully not me.
And the driver couldn't figure out what the hell was going on because he sees me. He's like, "Wait, aren't you?" But then I'm like,
"Am I the episode? What's going on here?"
But he's a real cop. And then the dude in the back was like, what? I was like, "Bro, what are you doing? This is our city. What are you doing?" I'm sorry. And he looked like he was about 12. But that to me, man, I mean, what is it about those people that have absolutely no regard for their space? That says a lot about who you are as a person. Like, you have no regard for who you are. Because if you understand who you are, then you always understand your connectivity to your environment.
Right.
And so if you would just litter openly, randomly, then that's how you move in the world. That's what you think of yourself, right? And so for those of us that come from environments that show us, right, through either lack of development, lack of investment, lack of resources, that the world doesn't care about us, so we're just going to act out, right? And that's pretty profound. But I knew that having that moment with that kid could change his life.
Right.
He may think twice the next time he's going to talk to someone out the window.
I gotta ask, man, because you're from the Bronx and you talk about, you know, your environment and the things around you. Like, explain growing up in the Bronx. Some people can't imagine like what the Bronx actually looked like. So to, you know, to actually see it years later and see the transformation and just how things change, you know, it's definitely different. Like even back in the day, that poverty, you know, it allowed us to create hip hop. You know, it gave us that space to recycle these old records and get in the park and plug up to the lamp and all of that stuff. And you were in it in that era, and I feel like it's a super special era. You know, were you able to see hip hop coming
No,
up?
you know, it's so funny because literally as you talking, I'm like, how the hell do you know, first of all, right? Which means you did your research. Somehow you figured out, or read or saw videos, I'm assuming.
Everything.
But yeah, so what's funny is as you are describing that, I'm literally placing myself as a 12 or 13-year-old in the park. Like that kid literally pulling the plug out of the lamp pole or putting it in. Or like how many fights would start. Or someone might throw a light bulb and just the sound of it, people think it was a gunshot or a light firecracker. And it would always end in some kind of, you know, some kind of nonsense. But yeah, man, I mean, I grew up in that. You know, being born in the Bronx and raised in Harlem in the 70s and watching my brother at 9 when he was Lil Romeo and I was like 7. You know, the original Lil Romeo.
Okay, I was about to say.
No, was my brother.
Okay,
like
okay.
Back in the 70s, that was his rap name.
You was rhyming too?
No, I wasn't. In fact, I hated it. Because I was in the 50s music, right? So I grew up, I'm a musician, I play guitar. My father was a jazz musician. I was in musical theater, I was singing. And so I'm relating to Sam Cooke. I'm relating to the Drifters and the Jive 5 and, you know, all that era of 3 and 4 and 5 part harmonies, the platters, like that was music to me. Because what I know is the power of film, right? There's a lot of people that became cops because of New York Undercover. True story, including Rodney Harrison, who just retired as chief of police.
Wow.
He became a cop because of New York Undercover. Here's a funny story. I was in Turks and Caicos doing this film for the BBC called Turks and Caicos, if you've never seen that film. And you know, I wanted to play, like they hired me as, like in Turks and Caicos, you got a lot of people from all over the world that leave their current country as expats and they relocate from America, from Europe, all over. So there's no one accent in Turks and Caicos. And so I wanted to play like a local dude, right? And just give him whatever the local dude's accent was. But the director's like, nah, just be like a
Caribbean accent official?
But, yeah. But specifically the Turks and Caicos black people accent. So the director's like, nah, just play him as American. I was like, all right, cool. But let me at least meet somebody local because I want to get like intel on how he moves. And so I meet with this cop and I'm talking to him for about a half hour. So what's it like? What was your training like? And after about 30 minutes, he goes, you know what? I just gotta tell you, bro. Everything I do, I got from you. He said, I used to watch you on New York Undercover. So the way I dress, my haircut, everything is because I watched you.
Well, like we never seen cops that had swag. I was wearing sweats, Timbs, you know what I'm saying? Listening to hip hop, going to the spot at the end of the night. And
but we were actually, the show was based on real cops. They were real dudes, but they were out of Chicago. So there was some young dudes that were like hood guys that were cops. So yeah, man, it was important to represent the hood. Like I'm a dude from the South Bronx and Harlem, so I was like, nah, I gotta have Timbs. Nah, give me my army jacket. Give me my, like that was like, and part of that was I would see films of dudes that were supposed to be from New York, and I'm like, nah, that ain't it. That ain't it. I gotta. Like I remember when I had like my patent leather high top Adidas. And I think somebody in wardrobe was like, yo, what is that? I'm like, see?
Y'all dressed yourselves? Or?
We made a lot of the choices, yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah, hell yeah.
Had to, man.
Had to let them know, like, that ain't it.
I'm not wearing that.
But these patent leather joints that I couldn't afford when I was in high school, that's what I'm wearing.
Right.
Yeah, so it was a lot of that. But just, you know, we're kind of all over the place. But, you know, for me, you know, everything I do It's about how do you move other people forward? How do you lift as you climb, right? So the real estate game, the education game, whether I'm acting, whatever. And that's the other thing about the mixtape, that the goal was to teach filmmaking and real estate at the same time, and then end up with content and real estate deals. And that's exactly what's happening. So that work that I'm doing has led to the redevelopment of a public school in the South Bronx and a sports and wellness complex. And so now we have a whole new cohort of young people in the city that are learning about the built environment.
I gotta ask you, because it seemed like, with all this development, man, I feel like, was it Gavin from When I Get Married? I feel like that might be your favorite character. Wasn't he an architect?
Look at you, boy. Look at you. He was an architect.
Is that your favorite character, or you got other? Because you got a
No. That's one of my favorite characters is Wavy in The Last OG.
Oh, yeah.
Had a lot of fun with that character. He's a bad man. Bad man things,
It's like the opposite of all the other characters.
The villains, the bad characters are always much more fun. Always. Okay. Especially if you're not that dude. Because so it's like, you get to just play.
You do the, what is it called? Method acting, when you're acting like that all day, like I'm walking around on this character.
It depends. Like I played Martin Luther King in a film called Betty and Coretta. And particularly if you're going to play someone who's lived that has a very specific way that they move or speak, it's hard to fall in and out of that if you don't do it all the time. So certain things, you have to stay locked in because it's hard to recall it, right? So when you're on set and they say cut, you still need to be present in the character.
Right.
So, but the method, that's a particular type of approach to the work.
Are there other approaches you do?
Yeah, for every actor, there's a different approach. Not every actor studied method. Some actors have never studied at all. They just, follow their instincts and learn on the job. At the end of the day, the only thing that really matters is, are you telling the truth? However you get to the truth, right? So for some people, they have a lot more emotional blockage, right? And mental blockage that doesn't allow them to touch the truth, right? Other people, it's right there on the surface. So you don't have to reach that far for it. So it depends on the job, depends on the character, depends on where you are in your life, what you have going on. You might have been really good at accessing certain emotions early in your life. You have a lot more life experience and you have more layers of emotional trauma. It's hard to get through that for a lot of people. Like I remember when Puff was doing Raising the Sun. And he loves to challenge himself doing all kinds of shit, obviously. And he had a real hard time being vulnerable. And we spoke about that. And I told him, I was like, your strength is in your vulnerability, bro. Like, don't bring that Puff. Like, no one cares about that. If you're gonna step into the role that Sidney Poitier originated, you gotta strip all that away, bro, and get into it,
That's
and he did a pretty good job at it.
That's dope. Social media, even adults, a lot of things going on, a lot of bullying going on. How would you explain that for a kid? How would you direct somebody growing up in today's age?
I can only imagine how a 10, 12, 14, 15, 16 or whatever might deal with it without all the tools. And number one, stay off your phone. Stay off of social media, right? That's number one, like remove that from your space. Number two, remember that thoughts become things. And so the more you think about what happened to you, the more you replay the things that are painful, the more those things remain to live in you, right? So people love saying, man, I can't believe what, don't do that, right? Literally replace the thinking with another thought that brings joy, right? And so It doesn't mean that you forget what happens, but you have to replace it. You have to build on top of it.
Right.
Back to the real estate thing, right? If I, buy land that's toxic, like say I buy land that used to be a gas station, the first thing I have to do before I can build anything is I have to clean that out, right? And so the same thing is true with when we take toxins into our consciousness. We have to work on cleaning them out and then replace it, right? You can't just stay in the toxic materials, right? You have to clean that out, replace it, and build upon that. And the same thing is true with thought process. And so the more young people can learn that living well, living consciously, living a meaningful and a mindful life is a practice, which means you have to repeat it over and over. Steph Curry doesn't hit them threes without practice, and we can use all the sports metaphors all day long. And so we don't learn enough about how do you take care of self? What kind of mental gymnastics, what kind of mental sports do you have to play? And number one is mindfulness, right? Understanding that everything that manifests in a physical form first starts as a thought. Your shirt, your glasses, this camera, this interview, your questions, right? You thought about them before you speak them, before you write them, right? It's a thought. And so being able to train ourselves to listen to our unconscious mind. When you wake up in the morning, you might be hungry, you might need to take a bath, you might have forgotten your homework, you might have forgotten, whatever it is. That conversation you have before you actually open your mouth is your unconscious mind at work. It's conscious to the extent that you might know, okay, I have to do X, Y, Z. But then beneath that consciousness is another tape that plays, right? All those things that might bring you dissatisfaction in your life. Man, this person's pissing me off, man. Whatever it might be. Those thoughts, you relate to what I'm saying?
Right, absolutely.
That's energy. And that's gonna attract certain things to you, right? So, and it's certainly gonna impact the way you feel about yourself. So learning, so for instance, if you were having a bad moment, some people might take a moment and make it a whole day. I'm having a bad day. You might actually just be having a bad moment. Right. Because someone did or said something to you, or somebody said or did something to you in a row. And over the course of the last hour, it's been nothing but a whole bunch of nonsense. Right. But it doesn't mean it's your whole day. For me to exemplify that in every place I go is the most important thing. Because if you believe in God, and God is love, then you must be love. You must be love in every circumstance. Even when people are pissing you off. Even when you feel threatened. Right? And
it's difficult.
It is difficult. That's how I got shot. Because I see 9 dudes beating up one guy. One guy had a baseball bat, one guy had a golf club. 9 young men of color beating up on one dude. So my sensitivity and my love was like, this is bullshit. I wish it would. Well, guess what? Words have power. So my wish came true. Because it did.
Yeah.
And he stepped to me. And next thing I know, I push him back. Then another dude comes from behind me, grabs me around the neck, throws me on the ground, tells a third dude to shoot me, all in the space of like 15 seconds. Because I said I wish it would. Because I'm looking at this injustice and going, man, why they gotta have 9 dudes beat up on this one guy? So the guy grabs me around the neck, throws me on the ground, tells another kid to shoot me. I go after the kid that the other guy told to shoot me. And he pulls out, hit me in the neck at 15 years old.
15.
Just like that. January 18th, 1983. So what we're experiencing today is even worse, right? Those kids had no excuse. But these kids now really have no excuse. And don't even know how you talk social media, you talk music, drill music specifically, if you want to get into that. You know, the powers that be are allowing this music in every space. TikTok, Instagram, streaming services, some on the radio, coming out of people's cars, in their ear pods, walking around with this devil music that says, I hate you, so I'm gonna kill you. You mean absolutely nothing. I do not see your humanity because I don't see it in myself. right? And so these same platforms and vehicles that allow us to perpetuate this ideology have to also be the same spaces and places and platforms that we speak a counter narrative. Like, how is it that you can lead with love and lead with concern for your people, and the very people that you seek to serve will come back and attack you? And if you look at history, that's not unprecedented. And only the people who stand up righteously experience that. Others do too. But those that move with love, Gandhi, Mahatma Gandhi, Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, Marcus Garvey, Paul Robeson, these are all my heroes.
They got them up out of here, though.
Medgar Evers,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
The list goes on. Goodman, Cheney, Schwerner, Fannie Lou Hamer, Bob Moses, right? All those people, for me, as a child born in the 60s specifically, who looked at those that served something bigger than themselves, all of those people dealt with some level of trauma because they were trying to free somebody else.
Yeah, that's scary.
What's that?
That's scary.
And necessary.
Yeah. When we go into the schools, you know, they may have not had the greatest day, maybe not in the best environment at home, you know, and with Open Door, we attempt to, you know, bring back that block party aspect of, you know, going in and telling the children, you know, tap into your talents, what you're interested in, instead of being on the phone and, you know, that one comment, you know, might have messed up your day, but, you know, tap into your
It might have
music.
messed up your moment. Not your day. 24 hours in a day. So you telling me you mad for 24 hours for something that happened 24 hours ago?
Right.
And there's a lot of people that do that. Grown people do it. I mean, Trump, Putin. It's a whole bunch of adults that run around mad at you for something you did 5 years ago. But it's about being able to replace the thinking with a positive thought. Like, you might hear, keep a positive thought because a positive thought cannot be denied. And that's hard to do when everything around you is telling you no. When everything is telling you that this is painful, it's difficult, I don't have this, I don't have that. But that is the secret to success. And success isn't necessarily determined by how much money you make, but do you find joy? Can you find calm? Can you find peace in a moment? That's success, right? When the world is, think about, there's a hurricane happening right now. What happens in the eye of the storm? Nothing. You're just chilling. The eye of the storm is where the peace is at. The whole world is going nuts. And you're in the middle of the storm like, I can observe that, I can observe that. But I'm gonna choose to focus on that leaf, or that sunshine, or that bird, or the laughter of that child, or this beautiful color, or your beautiful smile, or the way a woman walks, whatever your thing might be, right? So I think that it's about being able to be mindful to know that what you experience in a moment doesn't make it a movement, it doesn't make it your whole life, right? So back to the bullying thing, it's unfortunate that some people will choose to say, I'm gonna take advantage of you and release my anger and my frustration on you because I don't feel good about myself. And you might not even be conscious that's what you're doing, right? But I think that the more you do this work with the open door and the urban block party, the more you create moments in time to give people something else to reflect on. And they go, you know what, this moment might suck, but I remember that time when I was doing that open door event or at the urban block party and the joy I felt in having that moment, I want to get back to that. And not only do I want to get back to that, I want to be the person that can create that for somebody else, right? And so the more we do that, the more you have opportunities to see humanity.